Hi everyone, welcome to the Wool-Minded Knitting Podcast, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. And if you're new to this podcast, my name's April and I'm a knitter based out of Cleveland, Ohio. It's been a very long time since I filmed a sit-down knitting video. I think the last one I posted was in March, and I'm not going to talk about why I was gone in this video, but if you want to know why I was gone, then you can check out the vlog that I posted last week. And there are chapters in there if you are just curious as to where I was, and you can click through the chapters and there's like a pretty long portion of me talking about where I have been. But today I'm actually going to talk about my fall knitting plans. I finally feel like I have knitting mojo again, which is so nice because knitting for me can be such a reprieve, and not having, like, I wasn't in a state in which knitting was enjoyable to me. So yeah, I'm really glad my knitting mojo is back. I actually finished a sweater 2 days ago, and I cast on a new sweater last week, and I'm already almost done with it. I'm a little over halfway done with that sweater. So I think by the time I film like my next podcast episode for me being back, I'll have 2 sweaters to show and a pair of socks and a hat. And I'm hoping to have cast on some of my fall knitting plans then too. So definitely keep an eye out for that. But yeah, having my knitting mojo back feels like such a blessing. And I'm also really excited for the projects that I have planned. So I'm going to talk about my fall knitting plans, but this isn't everything that I plan to knit for the fall, because I'm also planning on doing some gift knitting, but I'm not going to talk about that in this video because I have some thoughts like ruminating, revolving around gift knitting that I wanted to talk about. So I think after my next podcast episode, I'm going to talk about some gift knitting plans that I have happening, which will also be going on in the fall time here. But yeah, so today just fall knitting plans for me. Nothing for anyone else, but I definitely want to talk about gift knitting. So if you're interested in that, definitely subscribe to this channel and give this video a like if you like it. And I'm going to get into my fall knitting plans now. So my first fall, actually, I just want to say that today I'm filming and actually it's pretty cool outside. I think it's in the 60s and it had been in the 80s here recently. We're kind of having, I think it's called an Indian summer, when summer goes really late into the season. And I'm hoping this is really the true start to fall because I don't like summer like at all. I'm not a summer person. So I'm really excited for the summer to be over. And, I sympathize for all of you out there who do not like the winter season, because I know some people get really bad seasonal depression. So I definitely sympathize with people that summer is coming to an end. But personally for me, I thrive in the colder seasons. Not only do I like it because I enjoy knitting a lot more, but I just really love the cool weather and I like when it's gray and gloomy and dark outside. So I'm very excited for fall, and today actually feels like the true first fall day. It's super sad here though because I'm looking outside because we have a lot of trees in our front yard. But it's pretty sad here because we had such a drastic, it's been so hot so late into the season that pretty much none of the leaves turned color here. They just sort of all fell off the tree. So it's a bit disappointing in that regard that we're not getting the really beautiful fall leaves, but I'm still really excited for fall. The first sweater that I want to talk about is the Rosy sweater by Lynette, or Lena Home Sansa. I think that's how you say her name. It's this super beautiful drop knit shoulder sweater with a beautiful floral design across the chest and the top of the sleeves, with sort of 2 rows of flowers going across it. I know a lot of people are knitting this right now, so I've definitely been influenced in that regard, but it actually really reminds me of another sweater that I have yarn for in my stash. I have some Noro in my stash for the plum sweater by Junko Okamoto. And they are different, but for some reason they really remind me of each other, but they're just different enough that I'm okay with knitting this one and then still planning to knit the plum sweater by Junko Okamoto. And that's actually one of the oldest sweater quantities in my stash too, and I have yet to knit it, but I'm hoping That's something that's like really high on my priority list in it, just because that yarn has been in my stash since I first started knitting. So I've had it for a very long time, and I'd really like to either, with the older sweater quantities I have, knit them or destash them, because I think now it's been like years since I've had some of the sweater quantities in my stash, and that's probably getting to the point where, am I ever gonna knit this? But besides that, so the Rosy Sweater by Lynette really reminds me of that, and it just has a really beautiful color work in the front. I actually had a really hard time picking yarn for this sweater because I saw a version by West Maven. I think that's the name of her YouTube channel, I'm not sure, but she did a version that was like black with really antique-y looking flowers and leaves on it, and I loved her version. But I'm really trying not to buy new yarn, especially if I have something in my stash that will work for it. And that was definitely the case for this, and I was able to come up with a color combo that I really liked. So I'm glad of that, but I really loved her version. Maybe one day if I make it through my stash and that's something that I still want to knit, I'll knit a version in black similar to hers. I really like in like the batch of whatever I'm knitting to always have something cast on and knitted in, because I really love knitting and knitted in. So I was actually able to find a knitted in combo that I liked for the sweater, or knitted in for the base at least. I had originally put this knitted in aside for a Cardi jumper by Vert Knit, which is like a Cezanne sweater dupe. But I decided probably this color wasn't perfectly what I wanted. I did like that it was romantic for the Vert Knit jumper, because that's a super romantic sweater as well. But I just think the color was maybe the color was a bit too washed out of a color palette for me personally for a whole sweater. So I really like that I get to use this for the base of a colorwork sweater. So the yarns that I want to use for the Rosy sweater are these two yarns here. This is, I think this is Live Slinge. I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong, by Onair Oak Air, and this is knitted in, which is a very famous unspun yarn. I'm sure you've heard of this before. I don't know if this will come across on camera, but it's like a cool beige with red and pink veining running through it. So it's like a really cool light pink color, and it honestly reminds me a lot of like a light pink marble, like the stone. So I'm gonna use this, and then this is Sayer Silk Mohair. I had actually swatched these two together before when I was thinking about casting on the Cardi jumper by Vert Knit. So I already know that I really like this combination together. I was trying to find the swatch because I know it's somewhere for this, but it's lost in my stash, and I can't dig through all my stash to look for this because I have a lot. But together these make like a really beautiful pearlescent color. Like it really reminds me of the color of pearls. So I thought this would be a really nice base for such a romantic, or at least the potential, or for a sweater that has the potential to look so romantic with the flowers on it. So this is gonna be my base, and I love Isayer Silk Mohair. This is my favorite mohair ever. So I'm excited to knit with these two together because they're two yarns that I really love. And then for the flowers of that sweater, I actually decided to break up a hand-dyed sweater quantity that I had because I decided I didn't really like it anymore. I originally had this yarn combo to do an April cardigan by Petite Knit, but I actually don't think that I truly have enough yarn for how I would want that to wear. And I don't want to try to get a new skein of this because the dye lots won't match anymore. So probably what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to use this for the color work, and then the other, because I have 3 skeins of this, I'm maybe going to like knit like a hat or something, or socks, and then destash the other skein. So if you're interested in this yarn and you're located in the United States, you can actually message me on Instagram, and I'm happy to sell this to you. I would sell it probably like, I don't know, 30% off of the cost of the skein plus shipping. So it should come out to a little bit less than the cost of the yarn skein. I don't really like selling yarn for how much it cost. But so if you're interested, message me, and we can work out you buying this. This is Olivia and Oliver Fibers Classic Sock, and this is in the colorway Mahogany. This is a super beautiful color. It's like a variegated, rich, pinky brown, mauvey color. And I think this will look really nice for the roses on the sweater. And then to go along with it, I picked Issair Silk Mohair, and this is in the color 69. So this is the color combo that I'm planning to do for the flowers. And then for the leaf portion of the sweater, I'm gonna use this woolberry skein, which I don't know why a lot of my woolberry yarns don't have names on them. So I'm sorry that I don't know what color this is. It's a really pretty, like dusty, cool toned green, like a juniper sort of color. And it has some sort of dark speckling going on through it. So I think this will be really pretty for the leaves. And then for the mohair with the leaves, I'm really hoping that I can use this. I don't know how much weight this is. This is a scrap yarn that I actually got in a G-stash, so I don't even know what mohair this is. But I thought these would look really nice together and give a really good variation in the leaves. But I'm not quite sure if I have enough of this, so I'm gonna weigh this and see. And if not, I'm probably gonna have to buy something because I don't really have anything else in my stash that goes well with this color. I'm gonna try to hold these. So this is the color palette that I've chosen for my rosy sweater. And ooh, I think this will be a really nice romantic color palette. Definitely different than the sweater that I liked that West Maven is knitting, but I think it'll give like a similar romantic vibe. And I'm very excited to knit this, especially because I haven't knit with Nutidin in a little bit. And like I said, it's one of my favorite yarns. So I'm excited to knit with this and also to get some of these things out of my stash. Really the only concern that I have with knitting the rosy sweater is that I know to do that because Lynette actually intends you for the color work to just do it in one color, not in two. And I know from watching West Maven's video talking about that there'll be long floats. So I'm gonna have to learn how to catch. And because I'm using such a dark color for the color work and my base is so light, I think if I catch it the normal way, how I normally do, I don't know if it has a name, that you'd actually be able to see the color peeking through the background, which I really don't want. So I think I'm gonna have to learn how to do ladder back jacquard. And I'm really nervous to learn how to do that because I've never done it before. So you'll definitely see me talking about ladder back jacquard in my podcast episodes too, whenever I get to that. I'm really hoping too that me modifying the color work portion of that sweater to be done with two colors instead of one doesn't end up being too difficult. Although I've done a decent amount of color work, I definitely wouldn't say I'm an expert at color work knitting in any regard. And I sometimes have tension issues with color work. I don't know what it is with me, but I actually knit color work really loose. But I know a lot of people's issue with color work is that they often knit it too tight, but for me personally, I really have a problem in where I knit it too loose. Like my color work is so loose, I often need to go down at least one needle size, but certain projects I've had to go all the way down to 2. I don't know what it is with me. I think it's just me maybe hearing, in watching knitting videos before I ever did color work, hearing that people have a problem with knitting it too tight. So subconsciously, I've taught myself to knit it too loose. So we'll see how difficult that ends up being. I'm hoping it's not too bad to do that modification to the sweater. So the next sweater plan that I have is the Iris sweater by Trin Anna Lee. And that's actually another colorwork sweater, but that's an all over colorwork sweater. So this is definitely gonna be a super ambitious project for me. I think hers is knit in Holskarn, but I'm gonna knit mine in Jameson Shetland Spindrift. This is the color that I'm gonna use for the base. This is called Esit. This is color 105. And it's just like a really nice variegated beigey color. And I actually have a lot of this yarn in stash. And I think I wanna sort of make this sweater look scrappy. I don't know if I want each individual row of flowers to look different or if I want to sort of just do an alternating pattern. I kind of want to see how much yarn I use in an individual row before I decide that, because I don't want it to be that I'm using like a super odd amount of the balls and then I won't have any use for them after if there's like a weird amount left. So I think how much yarn is left after doing like a repeat of the pattern, then I will decide if I want it to be like entirely scrappy or if I want to do some sort of like alternating color scheme. So since I have so much of this yarn, I didn't pick out the color palette that I think I want for the flowers yet. So probably what I'm gonna do is I'll put some B-roll in after I've had time to go through it, and I'll show you kind of like what I'm going for. But yeah, so really all I have now to show you is the base of this. But this is gonna be a really ambitious knit for me because it is a very all over colorwork sweater and it's intended to also be super oversized. I know she also has a hat in this pattern and I may try to knit that first just to get a better hang of the pattern before I jump into the sweater, but we'll just have to see. I'm often someone who just jumps straight into things, so I may just jump into knitting the sweater, but I've pretty much liked this pattern since I've seen it. And I don't know, I'm really into floral things right now. You can see my fall knitting plans are really floral themed for the sweaters, but I'm definitely excited to knit this colorwork sweater too. And those are the only 2 sweater plans that I have for the fall, since I imagine those are gonna take quite a bit of time. And like I said, I also plan on doing some gift knitting too. So I don't wanna be overly ambitious with my fall sweater knitting plans. Actually, I just remembered that I lied. I do have another sweater plan, but this is for a stockinette sweater, so it shouldn't be too bad. So the last sweater plan that I have for the fall is actually a sweater that I haven't picked a pattern out for yet, but it's inspired by, there's this Banana Republic sweater that I really like. I'll put a picture up on the screen, and I have been debating whether or not to buy this, and I think I'm gonna try to knit it. And I think I'm just gonna pick a pattern that is similar. So the Banana Republic sweater has an exposed seam going down the shoulder and the arm, and also a seam down the back. But what I really like about it is that it has a super utilitarian look to it, and it actually has straps with D-rings that cinch the sleeve and also the sides of the sweater towards the back. And I think I'm just going to pick like an oversized drop shoulder sweater pattern and modify it to have either real seams, to have either real exposed seams or some sort of faux seam. And then it also has like a rollover collar neck, which should be easy. I think there's a bunch of petite knit sweaters that have a similar thing to that. And it's just like a really oversized sweater with these straps with the D-rings on them. And I think whatever pattern I end up choosing, if you actually have any pattern suggestions that you think are similar looking to that, I would love to hear. But I think I'm gonna use this Fisherman's Wool, the Lion Brand's Fisherman's Wool. And this is in the color Brown Heather. So I think I wanna use this color for the sweater. And like I said, I haven't picked a sweater. I'm gonna keep an eye out and look through the things that I have favorited on Ravelry and see what's closest to it. Or if you guys have any suggestions, I would love to hear as well. But I also have a question about that. So like I said, I'm gonna put some pictures up of the sweater that I'm inspired by that I would like to recreate. And so the straps that pull through the D-ring, they do have knitted fabric there, but they've like sewn it down to a cotton ribbon to sort of have structural integrity when you're cinching it through the D-rings. And I'm a very novice sewer and I don't really know much about like ribbons or, additional bits and bobs when it comes to sewing projects. But does anyone know what kind of cotton ribbon they're using to sew down the knit straps to? I am not sure. So if you know what kind of ribbon that is, I would really love to know if anyone out there is a sewist, because I have no clue. I'm sure with some searching, I'll be able to figure out what it is, but I don't know now. So if anyone knows what kind of ribbon they're using for the D-rings, I would really love any help that anyone can provide. So those are all my fall sweater knitting plans. And then aside from that, I just have one accessory and then like a couple odd objects that I want to knit in the fall here. And one of the odd objects that I want to knit is I have this Holskarn scrap on a cone. This is in the color Cinnamon. And I really want to knit the free shrew pattern that Claire Garland came out with recently. One of our gray cats, the smallest one of his nicknames is Shrew. So I really want to knit the tiny little shrew by Claire Garland in honor of him. My cat's name is Goose, the tiny gray one, but like I said, one of his nicknames is Shrew and Shrewby. So I'm gonna knit the shrew using this by Claire Garland. And then I'm sure I have some sort of pink scraps or something for the little arms and hands that he has. I've never knit a small stuffed thing before, or any sort of stuffed animal, but especially something so tiny. So that should be interesting. I actually have a tiny bunny pattern in my library from the author that does Moosh and Friends, and I'd been meaning to knit that for a while, but I just haven't gotten it to it yet. So I think, though, for the fall, I want to knit the tiny little shrew. And I actually think for the sweater, I'm going to do it Christmas themed because he has a little sweater that comes with the pattern. And I think I'm going to do like a red and green striped sweater from Stash. But I am very excited to knit the tiny shrew because I just think it is so cute. And it's such like an odd little pattern to have come out. And I just thought it was like such a cute coincidence that it's one of the nicknames that we call one of our cats. I guess it's kind of fortuitous that my camera just died because I just realized that for my one accessory pattern, I forgot to bring the yarn down. So when I got my spare battery, I went and grabbed that as well. So for the one accessory that I want to knit this fall, I really want to knit one of the Manhattan hats by Tori Yu. I'm not sure if I want to knit the light version or the normal version because I want to hold a fingering together with a mohair. So for the Manhattan hat by Tori Yu, I want to use this Moondrake Sparkles Stardust in the color Void, which is a really tweedy, dark purpley color with stellina in it, so it has a little bit of sparkle. I'm not sure if that's going to show up in the camera, but I'm going to hold this together with this Lamb & Kib Momo in the color Blueberry, which is like a bluey toned purpley color. And I just think together these are gonna make a really beautiful color combo, and I think the color combination is gonna have a lot of depth to it. So this is what I wanna knit a Manhattan hat by Tori Yu with, and I've never knit a pattern by Tori Yu before, so I'm excited to try one of her patterns because at least on Knitting YouTube, I know a lot of people love her knitting patterns, and I just really love the design that is at the top of the Manhattan hat by Tori Yu, how like the ribbing comes together. I just think it looks really nice. So I'm excited to knit this hat up, and I just love knitting hats. I think they make really great palette cleansers because they knit up really quickly and you're just going in the round generally. So I'm really excited to knit up this beanie by Tori Yu. And then the last odd object thing that I want to knit for the fall here is I really want to start a knitted blanket. And I think I'm gonna knit the famous Sweet Shop blanket by Laura Penrose. And I have a lot of variegated tonal mini skeins, and I think I'm just gonna hold them with some sort of undyed superwash yarn that I'm gonna pick up from one of the websites that sells yarn to dyers. But yeah, I have a lot of mini skeins in my stash, and this is just all the tonal ones I have, or at least most of the tonal ones that I have. So they're in this bag here, and you can see that I have quite a few. And I think this will make a really nice palette for that blanket as well. I'm not really sure at this point what size of that blanket I want to use. If you watched my vlog, then you know that my husband and I are currently going through our fertility journey, and part of me wants to knit it with the intention of it being a baby blanket, but also part of me doesn't want to put that expectation on that because obviously that's something that could potentially not happen. So I don't want to put too much emphasis on that, but I'm knitting that blanket, and if we get pregnant in that time, then I'll probably continue knitting it with the intention of it being the size of a baby blanket, but if not, then I'm gonna knit it into one of the bigger Sweet Shop blanket sizes. I am a tiny bit scared with knitting that blanket because from what I've seen from other knitting podcasters, that the squares actually take a really, really long time, and it's not quite as quick of a knit as you would think it would be. So I already know that probably doing a square in a day is just not gonna happen. So probably my intention is gonna be that I knit 2 or 3 triangles in a week. But yeah, I think 2 to 3 triangles a week is a really good pace for the intention of this being a really long-term project. I just don't want a blanket to be like a really high pressure knitted item because they're so big. So I know that it takes a long time, but that is going to be the last of my fall knitting plans. And I would really love to know what fall knitting plans you all have and any recommendations that you have for me recreating that Banana Republic sweater. I would love to hear too. And also if you know what ribbon they used for that. So I'm able to do the ribbon attachments with the D-rings like they have. But yeah, I'm hoping to film my next podcast episode early in the week next week, so it shouldn't be too long before you get another video from me. And I'm really glad to be back to Knitting YouTube. And if you're a subscriber that stuck around in my long hiatus and are watching this video again, I really appreciate you checking back in on me. And I hope everyone is having a really lovely fall so far, and I look forward to talking to you all again soon. Bye.